get into the Glbal Spotlight for this particular morning. Trump administration making vigorous efforts to end fighting in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin said the current White House was making vigorous and genuine efforts to resolve the Ukrainian conflict during a meeting on the preparations for his upcoming talks with U.S. President Donald Trump in Alaska. I would like to update you on the current state of our relations with the U.S. administration, which, as everyone knows, is making, in my opinion, quite vigorous and genuine efforts to end the fighting, resolve the crisis, and reach agreements that are in the interest of all parties involved in the conflict, to create long-term conditions for peace between our countries in Europe and in the world in general. If we reach agreements on strategic offensive arms control in the next stages, Putin said, speaking in Moscow on Thursday. The high-profile meeting between the Russian and the U.S. presidents is set to take place in Anchorage, Alaska, on August 15, covering the Ukrainian conflict and bilateral economic cooperation. The summit program will include a head-to-head between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, as well as a meeting between Russian and the U.S. delegations, a joint presidential press conference following the talks. Diplomatic exchanges between Moscow and Washington resumed in February, with a number of leaders' phone calls and meetings between delegations taking place. I think President Putin will make peace. Trump says a second meeting could clinch a deal, could involve EU leaders, or maybe not. U.S. President Donald Trump said he thought Vladimir Putin wants to make peace and that he was pushing for a second meeting to make a Ukraine deal, speaking on Thursday on the eve of his landmark summit with the Russian leader in Alaska. We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along. Maybe not. I don't know. That it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens, and I think President Putin will make peace, he said. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. Asked if he would offer Putin access to rare earths in Alaska to clinch a deal, Trump replied, as far as rare earth, that's very important relative to it. I'm trying to save lives. Trump meets Putin in Anchorage, Alaska on Friday morning.
Vladimir Putin access to rare minerals to incentivize him to end the war?
We're going to see what happens with our meeting. We have a big meeting. It's going to be, I think, very important for Russia. And it's going to be very important for us. And important for us only that we're going to save a lot of lives. Look, we have, we're not paying any money, as you know, to Ukraine. We're supplying equipment. We're being paid 100% plus for that equipment by NATO. And I got NATO up from 2% to 5% of GDP. They now have billions of dollars. NATO is a very rich group of countries, and we make the best military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and they're buying our equipment, and they're paying 100% for the equipment, 100%. In fact, they owe us about $2 billion now. They're going to send a check. Another one was sent recently for $1 billion. So we're not spending any money anymore. Biden gave them $350 billion, got nothing for it. And if you look, and by the way, we also signed a rare earth deal where we get, years of rare earth to get our money back, the money we spent. But what I'm really doing this for is to save thousands of soldiers a week. You have Russian soldiers, you have Ukrainian soldiers, and then you'll have missiles dropped into various cities and towns in Ukraine. And they're losing last week they lost 7,251 people, mostly soldiers, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. I'm doing it for that reason. We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. And if they can, it'll be great. I've solved 6 wars in the last 6 months, a little more than 6 months now. and I'm very proud of it. I thought the easiest one would be this one. It's actually the most difficult. We had one war raging, as you know, for 37 years. One in the Congo with Rwanda was raging for 31 years. We solved 6 of them, made peace, not just solved them, we made peace. If you look at Pakistan and India, that was, planes were being knocked out of the air. 6 or 7 planes came down. They were ready to go, maybe nuclear, we solved that. I thought this would be maybe an easier one. It never made sense, this war. It would have never happened when I was president. If I were president, this war would have never happened. But millions of people have been killed. And I'm there for one reason, to see if I can solve. This was Biden's war. This isn't my war. I want to see if I can stop the killing. Yeah.
But rare earths, do you plan to offer him access to that at all?
We have great rare earth. We made that as payment for all of the money that we've spent so foolishly in Ukraine. We spent $350 billion. Now Europe spent $1 billion. That's a lot of money. They spent $100 billion. That's a lot of money. But we shouldn't be spending a lot more money than them, and they understand that. And I think that's maybe why we're not spending money anymore. We're not spending any money. They're paying us for everything. So people are shocked when they hear it. They don't even understand. They don't even write about it. But we're not spending money, but we are spending a lot of time trying to get the war solved. If we can get the war solved, we'll be very happy. As far as rare earth, that's very unimportant relative to, I'm trying to save lives.
Never too late, but Macron needs to pay. Dollar reacts as president admits France's repressive violence in Cameroon's independence struggle. Dollar locals and experts suggested President Emmanuel Macron's admission about French repression during Cameroon's struggle for independence was welcome, but by no means sufficient. Speaking on Wednesday, Macron has sent a letter to Cameroonian President Paul Biya on Wednesday, recognizing France's role and repressive violence in the country's independence battle from 1945 to 1971. Dollar resident Steve Donfak said it was never too late to acknowledge the harm on one may have caused someone else, but stressed that we must recognize that we lost 2 leaders in this war of independence and consider how we will repair the damage caused. Another Louis Abega said that's all well and good, but he needs to pay compensation. French also needs to pay for their misdeeds. Sage Simon Soho, the Union of the People's Cameroon accused France of continuing to avoid taking full responsibility for its actions. France simply wants to draw Cameroon into a new form of tolerance without contribution or confession. He said it was France that instigated a war and even continued it after. In the media, culturally and intellectually, we are still victims of France's colonial war in Cameroon, he said. A joint report by Cameroonian and French historians examined by France's suppression of independence movement from 1945 to 1971. In the letter, Macron stated that the report highlights the violent repression by both colonial authorities and the French army during this period in Cameroon. It's up to me today to assume the role and responsibility of France in these events, he said. However, there was no direct apology for it or comment on potential reparations. Cameroon gained independence in 1960. In 2022, during his visit to the Cameroonian capital, Yaoundé, Macron said he would investigate and publish findings on France's role in the independence struggle. Match of Machines, Beijing opens first World Humanoid Robot Games with Grand Show. The inaugural World Humanoid Robot Games opened at the National Speed Skating Oval in Beijing with a visually striking robot show launching the 4-day sporting spectacle. Footage from the opening ceremony shows robots playing instruments, performing martial arts, drumming, walking in costumes, and competing in football and boxing, highlighting both agility and precision of next-generation humanoid machines. Performances blended technology with culture, including Welcome to the World of Carbon-Based Life, where robots danced alongside singers in street groups, and intelligent rhythm and harmony, merging traditional Chinese opera and martial arts with robotics. The large-scale robotic performance, Heavenly Clothes, presented a futuristic fashion show with human and robot models. From August 14 to 17, the National Speed Skating Oval will host 280 teams and over 500 humanoid robots from 16 countries across 5 continents, competing in 26 events and 487 games. Competitions include track and field, football, martial arts, gymnastics, and various industrial, medical, and hospitality scenic challenges. The games follow the milestones in China's humanoid sport, the first robot marathon in April, and a kickboxing march in May as part of the build-up. Beijing staged the 2025 Robo League on June 28, the country's first fully autonomous AI robot football march. Chinese robotics firms such as Unitree, Booster, Xiaomi, Xpeng, and Agibot are showcasing advanced full-body humanoid models during the event. The games are held after the 2025 World Robot Conference, also in Beijing, which early this month gathered over 200 exhibitors and 30 international experts. Zelensky should be here. Alaskans rally in support of Ukraine ahead of Putin-Trump summit in Anchorage. Dozens gathered in Anchorage, Alaska on Friday to show solidarity with Ukraine ahead of the high-stakes summit between U.S. President Trump and Russia's President Vladimir Putin. Footage shows protesters rallying with Ukrainian flags and signs reading "Fear is not freedom." Alaska stands with Ukraine and "Go home, Putin, get lost, Trump." I don't trust Putin. I don't trust Trump. Zelensky should be here. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. So it's wrong that he's not here, say Timothy Kane, one of the protesters. I'm angry and upset that Trump has invited Putin to come here to Alaska to discuss whatever is going on without Ukraine's presence, added another protester, Michelle Champion. Some at the rally even tried to claim that President Trump organized the summit to distract the public in an effort to not release the FCN files. Summits like these take months to put together. Why here? Why now? That's right, it's a distraction. But you know what? When Trump makes distractions, other people get hurt, one protester alleged. The meeting between Trump and Putin is set to take place in Anchorage, Alaska on Friday. Meanwhile, Zelensky has insisted that any decisions concerning Ukraine cannot be made without Kyiv's direct participation. Trump has suggested that could be swapping of territories under deal, while Zelensky has rejected it. The language of his allies also appeared to shift this week, with NATO's Mark Rutte suggesting Ukraine may need to accept some de facto Russian control. Germany's Friedrich Merz also said Kyiv was ready for negotiations regarding territorial issues while ruling out legal recognition. The White House confirmed that Tuesday that President Zelensky has not been invited to the talks and Trump will meet with Putin one-on-one. The meeting will reportedly be held at Joint Base Emidov Richardson. Diplomatic exchanges between Moscow and Washington resumed in February, with a number of leaders' phone calls and meetings between delegations taking place. And lastly, in Glbal Spotlight, enemy is advancing. DRC's government allied Wazalendo fighters accuses M23 of violating ceasefire. The DRC Wazalendo militants allied with government forces claimed that AFC M23 fighters had renewed their attacks across North Kivu on Thursday on contravention of a ceasefire agreement. The footage shows armed Wazalendo fighters preparing their weapons, vowing to respond to any acts of aggression from militant groups who observed the ceasefire declared in Doha by the head of state and the AFC M23 for a long time. But we found the AFC M23 violating the protocols of the agreement, said Kadogo Tondo, spokesperson for the Wazalendo. The spokesperson reaffirmed the group's intentions to defend its citizens, cautioning that they are not obligated to adhere to any ceasefire agreement. They continue to attack us in other areas. This is why we are not sitting still. Because first of all, the Wazalendo are not affected by the agreements. He said, we are here to defend ourselves. We want to show them that no, we are not going to sit back and watch our people die as long as we have full force to defend our nation. So tell the AFC M23 that when they continue to do this, we will retaliate, he added. The Qatar-mediated DRC M23 Declaration of Principles was signed in Qatar on July 26. The agreement set a deadline for the start date for peace negotiations of August 8, while the deadline for the deal to be completed in August 18. Before the declaration, a landmark agreement between DRC and Rwanda, brokered by the United States and Qatar, was signed in Washington on June 27. The deal calls for the creation of a joint security mechanism within 30 days, the complete withdrawal of Rwandan troops within 3 months, and the launch of a regional economic plan within 19 days. The agreement follows years of violent conflict in North and South Kivu. The Democratic Republic of Congo has long accused Rwanda of supporting the M23 rebel group, an accusation that Kigali has denied. We end the Global Spotlight. Good morning.